Welcome back. Today we're going to talk about trains. Toot toot. Those things that that run on rails and carry lots of people and goods and, blow smoke into the air. We're going to talk all about them. Because the late 1800s, the post-Civil War era, is all about trains. And that's how really America begins to grow. So we're actually kind of jumping ahead in time. If you remember from our last video, we talked about the Second Great Awakening and this idea of reform and how the world is and the Americas are changing because of immigration. We're actually going to jump over the Civil War because we'll come back to that in our war and diplomacy theme next unit. But for now, we're going to talk about trains themselves. So in your notes, you need to have this listed as simply this: trains, 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 because we're going to talk about them a lot. So in the early 1860s, the Pony Express, a mail relay system using horses, connected the East and the West. The telegraph was much faster, though, and kind of rendered the Pony Express obsolete. But the telegraph couldn't carry people or packages. So long ago, if you had wanted to get your mail from somewhere, you would give it to a mail carrier. They would jump on a horse and they would ride it out to where it needed to go. Eventually, the telegraph will come along. And telegraph's going to change everything because now you can get a simple messages done, but you can't get everything. Not that package. There's no Amazon at this time. Speaking of Amazon, we've talked. They're supposed to be working on having drones in the air now to carry their packages. So think of trains as kind of the 1860s version of a drone, or a tractor trailer for that matter. Between 1862 and 1864, Congress passed the Pacific Railway Acts. It subsidized, or it helped provide financial assistance to the Central Pacific and the Union Pacific Railroad companies to build something called a transcontinental railroad. The railroads themselves relied on cheap immigrant labor to lay tracks through harsh conditions and rugged terrain, and were especially reliant on Chinese and Irish laborers who finished the most dangerous work of all. The Central Pacific Line started in Sacramento, California, and the Union Pacific Line started in Omaha, Nebraska. And on May 10th, 1869, the two railroads had worked themselves all the way out to Utah to a place called Promontory Point, where Leland Stanford, the same one that the university's named after, president of the Central Pacific Railroad and former governor of California, drove a golden spike into the railroad to connect the two lines. The golden spike was a giant nail, basically, and it was used to attach the metal rails of the railroad to the wooden ties. So if you go to a railroad today, you'll see these like round discs almost that are driven into the ground. They're actually long spikes like a nail. And that would hold these two together. Now, there's a really great story of Leland Stanford trying to connect the railroad and failing horribly, which we're actually going to talk about tomorrow in class. You don't want to miss it. Don't be sick tomorrow. So once this transcontinental railroad is connected, and it really kind of connects the entire country together, railroad routes really begin to flourish, and they're built a lot during the late 1800s, and they lead to an expansion of the population in the West. People now don't have to take a covered wagon all the way out to their new homestead out in Oregon. The idea of the Oregon Trail is gone now. You can ride a railroad. Steel, cattle, coal industries, they also grow, and locomotive technology expands. To make rail travel more uniform, in 1883, the railroad industry created 4 standard American time zones. Before that, individual communities kept their own time according to the sun's position. So, if you're in the Eastern time zone today, if you think about it, noon, where the sun would be directly over your head, would actually be at a different time than noon in Boston, as it would maybe in Cleveland, Ohio, for instance. So the railroad affected the life of everyday citizens because for the first time, we have time zones in America, and we actually can keep up with the time. Those time zones are virtually exactly the same today as they were in the mid-1800s. So that's it. That's all you really need to know right now about trains. We're going to go into them much more tomorrow. Don't worry. But for now, those are the big things. Remember, guys like Leland Stanford driving in the Golden Spike, the Union and Pacific Railroad connecting the country together, and the creation of time zones are some of the most important parts of this. Trains don't seem that glamorous today. We don't ride them as often, and they don't have as important part of our current history. But they really are kind of the backbone of America. They open the door for people to make millions upon millions of dollars. And eventually we'll call these people robber barons who kind of take advantage of people work and make millions of dollars off the backs of other people's labor. But for now, trains really do get the country up and running and start to make us into an industrial power. From here, we're only going up. And so what you need to have in your notes for tonight is all of these, anything that was on the previous slides. You also need to have 2 potential essay questions that relate to this material at the bottom of your notes. And if you have any other questions, if you have any comments or something you don't understand, write them in the margins of your notebook. Bring that to class with you tomorrow, and we'll discuss it when we review this again. Until tomorrow, have a great rest of your day. I will see you then. Bye-bye.